by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we pray that Allah bless our lesson in this blessed month of Sha'ban, the few last days of this month before entering into the month of Ramadan, and we pray that Allah make us reach us in Ramadan in sihatin wa afiyah. And we pray that Allah bless all of us and with forgiveness and answering any of our prayers. And may Allah protect us from all difficulties, trials and tribulations in dunya and akhirah. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. So we have entered into the chapter of Hajj in Muqaddimah Hadramiyyah. And in our last lesson, we were speaking about the obligation of Ihram and likewise the sunnahs pertaining to Ihram. So today, inshaAllah ta'ala, we will enter into the obligation of tawaf. So we enter into our book. So we are now at page 178. So the author mentioned Faslun wa wajibatu tawafi thamaniyatun. So he mentioned that the obligations pertaining to the tawaf, there are 8 things. That is wajib, compulsory. Number 1 is satrul awra. That when we perform our tawaf, we must cover the awra. So the awra is the same as in prayers. The awra of the man in prayer is between the navel and the knees. And when it comes to the woman, the whole body except for the face and the hands. So this awra in prayers is the same as the awra in tawaf. So when we are performing the tawaf, we must make sure that each and every moment of tawaf must be in a state where we are covering our awra. If our awra is exposed, then we have to cover it up, and the part of the tawaf is not considered to be valid. وَطَهَارَةُ الْحَدَثِ وَالنَّجَسِ. Likewise, in tawaf, we have to be in a state of wudu, and there must be no filth, as though we are in prayers. So likewise, as we are in prayers, it's not permissible for us to pray not having ablution, or to pray in a state where there is najasa. Likewise, in tawaf. So these are the conditions. وَجَعْلُ الْبَيْتِ عَلَى يَسَارِهِ. So when we're doing our tawaf, we must make sure that the Kaaba is on our left side. Usually people do not make mistake in this due to the numbers of people doing the tawaf. So the direction of the tawaf must be proper. That it must be in a way that the left side of our body is facing the Kaaba. And there is wisdom why left side of the body, because nearer to the heart. That's what some of the scholars mention. وَالْإِبْتِدَاءُ مِنَ الْحَجَرِ الْأَسْوَدِ. And to start from Al-Hajar Al-Aswad. So the beginning of the tawaf begins with Al-Hajar Al-Aswad. So we have to know where exactly is the place of the beginning of the tawaf. So last time what they used to do is they make a line on the floor. But nowadays there is no line. So the point where we understand that we are at Hajar al-Aswad and the beginning of the tawaf is the green light. So nowadays we'll place the green light on top. So while we are walking we can see on our right side that this is the light that is adjacent to Hajar al-Aswad. So this is how we ascertain the beginning of tawaf. So when it comes to the intention of tawaf, it must be made before we cross this line. Because if a person crosses the line forgetfully, and he forgot that this is the beginning of the tawaf, this is not counted. So we have to make sure that when we begin the tawaf, we are sure at the place where is the beginning of the tawaf. That is the Hajar al-Aswad, in the adjacent point of the Hajar al-Aswad. In the end part of the Kaaba. وَمُحَاذَاتُهُ بِجَمِيعِ بَدَنِهِ. مُحَاذَاتُهُ بِجَمِيعِ بَدَنِهِ. So now, when we are performing the tawaf, so we must make sure that our whole body, when it comes to the beginning of the tawaf, our whole body is before this line of beginning. This line of the beginning of the tawaf. So once we make the intention that we are performing the tawaf, and that our body, our whole body is out of this line, not any part of our body outside the line. It must be before this line in the beginning of the tawaf. Then only our tawaf will become valid. Otherwise, the first cycle will not be valid. The first cycle, if part of the body is on one side, the other part is on the other side, then it is not considered to be a valid tawaf. So the whole body must be before this line of the beginning, when performing the tawaf. Wa kaunuhu sab'an. The next obligation is that it has to be seven times. And these 7 times must be based on conviction. Must be based on conviction. If a person has doubt, then he has to take the lesser one. If a person has doubt whether it is number 6 or number 7, then he has to take number 6. Just like in prayers, when we have doubt pertaining to the number of rak'ah, we take the lesser number, because this is going back to conviction. So whenever we have doubt, then we have to take the lesser count. Wa kaunuhu dakhil al-masjid. Tawaf must be done within the compound of the masjid. It is not permissible to do tawaf outside of the masjid. If a person drives a car outside Masjid al-Haram and make one round using the car, this is not valid, although he is in the haram. But because it is outside the masjid, it is not permissible. So it must be inside the mosque. Wa kharij al-bayti. And it must be out of the Kaaba. The body must not be inside the Kaaba. So it is not permissible. And for example, if a person does the tawaf and he puts his hand, he touches the walls of the Kaaba, this will make the tawaf becomes invalid. Why? And because when you touch the Kaaba, you have make any part of your body enter into the Kaaba. Because there is this thing that is called Shadar in the bottom of the Kaaba, where originally the Kaaba is bigger than what we see. So this is the thing that we have to understand, because the Kaaba during the time of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam is bigger than the Kaaba that we see today. Today the Kaaba that we see is different from the Kaaba of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. In the Quran, for example, in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam building the Kaaba, and Nabi Ismail alayhi salam. So they are the first prophets to build the Kaaba. Before Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, there was no Kaaba, but there was the land, the Holy Land, and is there. So he came, Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, he came and built the Kaaba. And this is recorded in the Quran. The Quran speaks about the building of the Kaaba by Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. And we have the famous dua, Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka anta samiul alim, tub alayna innaka anta tawwabur rahim. This is the dua of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam after building the Kaaba, that usually we recite after our prayers. So what happened was, during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is the time of Hajjaj bin Yusuf, something happened. So he actually threw a catapult from the hills of Mecca, because of the war between him and Abdullah bin Zubair. And he threw a catapult and it smashes the Kaaba. The Kaaba was destroyed. The Kaaba was destroyed at the time of Hajjaj bin Yusuf. So after that they rebuilt the Kaaba. So when they rebuilt the Kaaba, even during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the pagans they have made some adjustments into the Kaaba. That's why there's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where the Prophet mentioned, if not for the fear that people will cause any confusion pertaining to this affair, I will make the Kaaba as how Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam built. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not do that, because out of the fear that people might misunderstood the reasons. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not do it. But at the time of Hajjaj bin Yusuf, the Kaaba was destroyed. The Kaaba was destroyed. Abraha wanted to destroy the Kaaba. Allah sent Ababil. Hajjaj bin Yusuf threw a catapult and he destroyed the Kaaba. There is a reason why when Abraha wanted to destroy the Kaaba, Allah sent adab. But Hajjaj bin Yusuf managed to destroy the Kaaba. Sometimes our teachers ask the reason how come. Why? What is it? Why is when comes to Abraha, Allah sent any Tayran Ababil. But how come any this can happen when it comes into the Muslims? Hajjaj bin Yusuf and is a Muslim, commander in the Umayyad army. So this is another question. Then inshallah ta'ala, I will answer maybe in the next lesson. And for those who are listening, and maybe you look into this. There is a reason. Ala kulli hal, there is a reason why it happened. So what happened was the Kaaba was rebuilt. This is what I'm getting into. The Kaaba was rebuilt. And due to that, there are some changes into the Kaaba. So during the time of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, what you see Hijr Ismail is part of the Kaaba. So it was a bigger version of the Kaaba. The original Kaaba is bigger than what we see today. Point number 2 is the door of the Kaaba is on the ground level. But what we see today is the door of the Kaaba is raised. And the stones that is below the door of the Kaaba is the remains from the time of Hajjaj bin Yusuf. Because initially the door was below, but when it was destroyed, so the remains of the stones of the Kaaba were made to build the base of the Kaaba, what you see today. So what you see today, the base of the Kaaba, meaning the stones that is below the door of the Kaaba is actually the remains of the walls of the Kaaba before the time of Hajjaj bin Yusuf. Because Hajjaj bin Yusuf, after he destroyed the Kaaba, he went into Asma binti Abu Bakr radiallahu anha. Asma binti Abu Bakr is the daughter of Bakr radiallahu anha. So he asked Asma, what should he do with the remains of the stones of the Kaaba? But subhanallah, this person just killed her son. Just killed her son, Abdullah bin Zubair. And then he went to her and asked her for advice. So Asma was very angry, but despite that, she said that put the remains at the mouth of the Kaaba. So that's what he did. He took the advice, even though he killed the son. So ala kulli hal, when we are performing the tawaf, when we touch the walls of the Kaaba, our tawaf becomes invalid. Why? Because the original Kaaba is bigger than that. So that is the thing. So that is why when you are doing any tawaf, stay away from the walls of the Kaaba. And do not enter into Hijr Ismail. Because if you enter into Hijr Ismail, you are literally inside the Kaaba. You are literally inside the Kaaba. So the thing is, we have to assume the original building of the Kaaba. We have to assume. So Shazarwan is part of the Kaaba. Hijr Ismail is part of the Kaaba. So the author mentioned wa kharij al-bayt, that we have to do dakhil al-masjid kharij al-bayt, inside the masjid but outside the Kaaba. Outside the Kaaba. Wa shazarwan, that's what we mentioned. Wa shazarwan wal hijr. Shazarwan is the stone that you see at the base of the Kaaba. This is shazarwan. It is like a slope. So all these things is within the Kaaba. All these things is within the Kaaba. Wal hijr. So the part of Hijr al-Ismail, as what we mentioned, it is part of the Kaaba. Likewise, Hajar al-Aswad. When we put our head inside Hajar al-Aswad, our hands inside Hajar al-Aswad, we are putting our body inside the Kaaba. We are putting our body inside the Kaaba. So if a person, for example, is doing any tawaf and he kisses the Hajar al-Aswad, then he has to take a step back and then continue the tawaf, because the part where he is standing when he is kissing the Hajar al-Aswad, this is not counted as tawaf. Why? Because part of the body is inside the Kaaba. So when a part of your body is inside the Kaaba, so that part is not considered to be tawaf. You have to move back. You have to move back and move again with the intention of tawaf. So this is where the author mentioned that we have to make sure that our body is outside the Kaaba, outside the Shazarwan, outside the Hijr Ismail and Hajar al-Aswad. Wa min sunanihi al-mashyu fihi. The sunnah of tawaf is that we walk. So it is not a sunnah to run. So there is this, later he speaks about a ramal. But this is pertaining to certain conditions. And if we are doing any tawaf, is after the tawaf there is sa'i, then it is sunnah to do ramal. And it's actually not running. Some people misunderstood this. There is a difference between harwala and ramal. In sa'i is harwala, but in tawaf is ramal. So what is the meaning of ramal in tawaf? It is not any runnings. Sometimes you see people running and doing tawaf. This is not correct. The sunnah of tawaf is al-mashu. And the thing about ramal, it is actually walking, but walking with quick steps. It is still considered to be al-mashi. It is walking with quick steps. Meaning when you walk, you take quick steps. So this is the meaning of ramal. Later the author will mention. وَمِن سُنَنِهِ الْمَشْيُ فِيهِ وَالْإِسْتِلَامُ الْحَجَرِ وَتَقْبِيلُهُ وَوَضْعُ جَبَهَتِهِ عَلَيْهِ. This is pertaining to Hajar al-Aswad. Before we do the tawaf, it is a sunnah that we kiss the Hajar al-Aswad and we put our forehead on the Hajar al-Aswad. This is the meaning of istilam. So istilam is kissing the Hajar al-Aswad and putting our forehead on Hajar al-Aswad. This action of kissing and putting our forehead on Hajar al-Aswad is the meaning of istilam. And this is a sunnah for every round of tawaf. Is that it's very difficult and nowadays especially to do it. At so many instances almost impossible for you to do that. Because of the amount of people at the mataf. But there is a possibility that if a person comes in a time where there are not many people, that you might have the chance to do istilam, if not every round, maybe one of the rounds. So that is possible. So this is the sunnah. And the Prophet ﷺ does istilam of Hajar al-Aswad for every round of his tawaf. But again, we have to understand that when we do the istilam, we have to move back. After the istilam, we have to move back. And likewise, it is a sunnah to do istilam ruknil yamani. To do istilam on ruknul yamani. So there is ruknul yamani, and this is the edge of the Kaaba before you reach Hajar al-Aswad. Before you reach Hajar al-Aswad, the last edge is called ruknul yamani because it points to Yemen. And only in ruknul yamani, it is a sunnah for us to do. It is a sunnah for us to do istilam. And normally we do istilam with our hands. We read the dua of istilam and we point our hands to the rukun and we kiss it. This is usually we do it especially for Hajar al-Aswad when we do not have the capacity to kiss it. So we kiss our hands instead after we recite the dua of istilam. وَاسْتِلَامٌ رُكْنِ الْيَمَانِ وَالْأَذْكَارِ فِي كُلِّ مَرَّةٍ. There is a lot of adhkar. When it comes to looking at the Kaaba, there is a dua. When it comes to the first tawaf, there is a dua. The second tawaf, there is a dua. When it comes to istilam, there is dua. So there are a lot of dua. When it comes to between Rukun Yamani and Hajar al-Aswad, there is a dua. When it comes to the last tawaf, there is a dua. After tawaf, there is a dua. So there is a lot of adhkar and salawat upon the Prophet ﷺ in between the tawaf. So all these things we can look at the books of adhkar that are written. وَلَا يُسَنُّ لِلْمَرْأَةِ الْإِسْتِلَامُ وَالتَّقْبِيلُ إِلَّا فِي خَلْوَةٍ. But when it comes to women, istilam is not a sunnah, except that if she is alone. Because woman, for example, when they do istilam, and especially when they go to the Hajar al-Aswad to kiss the Hajar al-Aswad, a lot of things happen. A lot of sins can be done because majority they are men. And when there is a lot of men and the woman suddenly comes in and join the rumble at the mataf, then the possibility of doing any sins is very, very high, and it becomes the reason that people become sinful after that. So women should not do istilam, especially when it comes to kissing. So if you see there's a lot of people at the place of Hajar al-Aswad, as a woman we need to understand there is no sunnah in kissing Hajar al-Aswad in this situation, because the possibility of committing sin is much greater than performing the sunnah. And likewise when it comes to waving for istilam, not a sunnah for women to wave, because all these things can create any fitna. Can create any fitna. So for women, the author mentioned it is not a sunnah to do any istilam. وَيُسَنُّ لِرَجُلِ الرَّمْلُ فِي الثَّلَاثَةِ الْأُولَى فِي طَوَافٍ بَعْدَهُ سَعْيٌ. As what I mentioned, there is this term that is called al-raml. So ramal, the meaning is walking with quick steps. The first three rounds of the tawaf where sa'i is before, after the tawaf there is sa'i, then it is a sunnah for us to perform our tawaf in this manner. The first 3 rounds we walk with quick steps. Wal ittiba' meaning we put the ihram cloth under our armpit, under right armpit, and we take the other end across our left shoulder. This is called al ittiba', and this is only sunnah in the first 3 rounds of tawaf, not for every time, not all the way you do ittiba. No, that is not the sunnah. The sunnah for ittiba is only for the first 3 rounds of the tawaf, meaning after the first 3 rounds, then we put our ihram on top of our shoulders. Wal qurbu min al bayt, it is a sunnah when we do tawaf that we go near to the Kaaba. Nearer to the Kaaba, there is more barakah. Wal muwala, then to do the 7 rounds continuously. This is sunnah. Although it is permissible, for example, if a person wants to go to the toilet after doing 3 rounds, he wants to go to the toilet, then he takes wudu, he comes back and he continues the 4th round. That is permissible. But the best is to do it in muwala, continuity. Wa niyatu, and to perform the niyyah. Why the author mentioned niyyah is a sunnah here? Because when you make the intention of ihram, the intention for tawaf is included. And if a person makes the intention of umrah, for example, so now he makes the intention for umrah, automatically the obligation of tawaf comes in. But when comes to before performing the tawaf, it is a sunnah to make the intention and to remind us that we are performing this tawaf for umrah, that we are performing this tawaf for umrah. Otherwise, if a person makes the intention tawaf for something else, then it is not considered to be tawaf on umrah. Likewise, pertaining to hajj, if you are performing the tawaf ifadah, then we have to differentiate between the tawaf. Otherwise, our tawaf is not valid. Wa raka'atan ba'dahu, it is a sunnah to pray the 2 raka'ah after it. So after we perform the tawaf, we have sunnah to tawaf, and the best is to perform it behind the maqam of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Otherwise, we can perform it at any part of the haram, and especially in Hijr Ismail, it is recommended if you can enter into Hijr Ismail, and likewise anywhere near the Kaaba. Then the author speaks about sa'i. So now we have completed on the tawaf, so we will speak about sa'i. So the word sa'i comes from the word sa'a. Tawaf comes from the word tafa. Tafa yatufu, to move in a circle is called tawaf. Sa'a it is basically to walk in a fast pace. The Arabic language sa'a yas'a to walk in a fast pace. So the author mentioned the rulings of as-sa'i, and all these things goes back to the event of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam and his wife Hajar alayhi salam. So there is this incident where she is looking for water, and she moves from Mount Safa to Marwa 7 times. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it obligatory until Qiyamah that we have to perform this sa'i from Mount Safa to Marwa. And all this by the virtue of the sacrifice of a woman who is the wife of a Nabi. Because of the sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Having perfect conviction in Allah that Allah will give him sustenance. Despite she is in the desert anywhere. Min ghayri zi zar'in. Allah said in the Quran. Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam he mentioned that he is in a place fi buqa'atin mubarakah. In a place that is blessed, there is no vegetation and no water. So she was finding water for the son, Ismail alayhi salam. So this is where the obligation of sa'i comes, that we have to perform the sa'i. So a lot of all these religious rites in Islam is ta'abbudi, because when you use your thinking and your logic, you cannot understand. But all these things is based on ta'abbudi, that it is based on servanthood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sami'na wa ata'na. Allah said do sa'i in a particular place. Although when we logically we ask ourselves why in Safa in Marwa, why 7 times? All these things goes back to the action of Hajar alayhi salam. All these things tell us that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a particular action, He made it obligatory upon us. And this is a test for human beings. And a lot of these things is something that we cannot perceive by our intellect, but it is based on submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَوَاجِبَاتُ السَّعِي أَرْبَعَةٌ. There are 4 things that are compulsory. أَيَّبْدَأَ فِي الْأُولَى بِالصَّفَا وَفِي الثَّانِيَةِ بِالْمَرْوَةِ, that we have to begin and with the Safa and we end with Marwa. وَكَوْنُهُ سَبْعًا, so from Safa to Marwa is considered to be one, Marwa to Safa is considered to be one. So if you start in Safa, you will end in Marwa. وَأَنْ يَكُونَ بَعْدَ طَوَافِ رُكْنٍ أَوْ قُدُومٍ, so once and if you have performed the Tawaf Rukn in Hajj or Umrah, or Tawaf al-Qudum in Hajj. Tawaf al-Qudum is the Tawaf that we perform when we reach Makkah. So before we go to Arafah, if we are performing the Ifrad Hajj, then we perform a Tawaf Qudum. It is permissible for us to perform the Sa'i after Tawaf al-Qudum, or Tawaf Rukun, that is Tawaf Ifadah. So when those people who are performing any Hajj of Ifrad, if they do the Ihram of Hajj, then they have the choice whether they want to perform the Sa'i after Tawaf al-Qudum or to perform the Sa'i after Tawaf al-Ifadah. This is what the author is saying. وَسُنَنُهُ الْإِرْتِقَاءُ عَلَى الصَّفَا وَالْمَرْوَةِ قَائِمَةً. So you notice when it comes into Sa'i, being in the state of ablution, and it's not an integral. Yani if a person has to do wudu, the Sa'i is still valid. This is the thing about Sa'i. And the thing about Sa'i is that it is outside the compound of the masjid. It is outside the compound of the masjid, not any for tawaf. That is why for women who is having any menses, the only issue for them is a tawaf because they cannot enter into the masjid the masjid, and number two is because tawaf they are required to have ablution. But different when it comes into sa'i. وَأَنْ يَكُونَ بَعْدَ طَوَافِ رُكْنًا قُدُومًا. That's what we mentioned. وَسُنَنُهُ الْإِرْتِقَاءُ عَلَى الصَّفَا وَالْمَرْوَةِ قَامَةً. So when we do when we go to the Mount Safa, we find that there is a slope all the way to the stone area. So the author mentioned it is a sunnah that we climb up the slope all the way until it reaches a level of 1 qama. 1 qama meaning it is a level of a person that is standing. A person that is standing, not any too tall, not too short. The normal person, maybe we say 1.8 meters of a normal human being is about 1.7, 1.8 meters. So we climb up as high as 1.7 or 1.8. This is the sunnah. And you will reach at the stones area. Nowadays the stones are still present. You can climb, but during any COVID or post any COVID, they close that area. But I remember a few years back, like before any COVID, it was open, that you can climb all the way up, and your feet it reaches the stones of the Kaaba, and there it is a sunnah to face the Kaaba and make dua. So there is a dua before beginning of the sa'i. There is a prophetic invocation that is sunnah for us to recite before we begin the sa'i. So this is the first thing the author mentioned when it comes to the sunnah, that we climb up the hill. Wal adhkar. When it comes into the adhkar, mashallah, there are many adhkar. I always recommended people to bring along a book. And if a person, for example, cannot memorize in so many things, then bring a book with you. There is no harm in holding a kitab. Holding a kitab while doing any sa'i. Rather than you do sa'i and you think about something else, and you are not reciting anything, it is better that we hold a book and we recite the adhkar, and to have the tasbih with us, the musabbiha. At least it reminds us of zikrullah. Otherwise our mind will sway. We might be thinking about the dunya, thinking about food, thinking about dinner, while we doing a sa'i. But we want to take the opportunity to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the time to make dua, because dua is mustajab. Summa dua thalathan ba'da kulli marratin. And then we make the dua after every time. Every time we perform the sa'i, then we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wal mashu awwalahu wa akhirahu, to walk while doing sa'i. And then the author mentioned wal adu. This is running. In some books they mention harwala. So this is different from ramal, and that's what I mentioned. The running in sa'i is not the same as a ramal in tawaf. The difference is ramal in tawaf is that you are walking with fast steps. This is ramal. The running in sa'i is literally in our words, we say a jog, like a jog. So this is the meaning of wal'adu. It can also be translated as running. Fil wasat. So nowadays, no problem, and we know anywhere to run because of the green lights. So nowadays, you see people running when they approach the green lights. وَمَكَانُهُ مَعْرُوف. The author mentioned, it is known. In Umdatul Salik, the author speaks about the green. Last time they used to paint the walls green. Now they put the green lights, but last time there are no lights. So what they do is on top they paint green color. So when people see green, they know that is the place of al-harwala or the place of al-adu. Now when we go on to the next part, the author speaks about faslun wa wajibul wuquf. Now when he is going to be on the wuquf in Arafah. And Arafah is for Hajj. One of the main integrals of Hajj is to be in the land of Arafah. So Arafah basically it is a place. And the reason it is called Arafah, it is said, and it is a place where Nabi Adam alayhi salam met Hawa. So it is the place of Arafah. And the place is vast. In any part of Arafah that we be in, it suffices. So the author mentioned حضوره بأرض عرفة لحظة بعد الزوال يوم عرفة. So this is the minimum obligation, to be in the land of Arafah even for one lahda. Lahda is a moment. And the condition is بعد الزوال يوم عرفة. After zawal, meaning at the time of Zuhr, when the sun reaches zenith. يوم عرفة, that will do. Before any COVID, there is a viral video of a person who does the throwing of the stones while he is on the car. So what he did was he went with his car to Mina, and he does the throwing of the jamrah inside his vehicle. So all these things people are doing. Even in wukuf, there is a drive to wukuf. People drive to and so on and so forth. But of course in this one we say the minimal obligation. But when it comes to the sunnah, it is totally a different story. We go all the way to perform Hajj. We do not want to do the minimum obligation, and we want to get barakah. This is the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and he speaks about istijabatu dua. This is the time that we ask Allah for forgiveness. This is the time that we ask Allah for all our needs, dunya and akhirah. So we cannot be there only a moment, just for the sake of fulfilling the obligation. But it's more than that. Because at the end of the day, it is ibadah and ubudiyyah. So we have to take any opportunities. So there is a difference in learning fiqh and practicing fiqh. So if a person is study fiqh just for the sake of validity of ibadah, then you get any validity of ibadah. But at the end of the day, learning any fiqh is not only about validity of ibadah, but it is about attaining the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the obedience of His commandments. And emulating the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that is the door to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in reality. So the author mentioned وَمَارًا وَنَائِمًا بِشَرْطِ كَوْنِهِ عَاقِلًا. Even though a person, and that's what we mentioned, drive to maran, passing by. Na'iman. A person, for example, he sleeps before zawal all the way until maghrib. He sleeps. Then he left Arafah. You say valid. بِشَرْطِ كَوْنِهِ عَاقِلًا. The most important thing is must be aqil, that he must be mentally conscious. So a person who is sleeping is mentally conscious. If you wake him up, he can wake up. But different if a person is fainting, fainting not valid. If a person is in a coma, not valid. Because why? The mind is not functioning. The intellectual consciousness is not present. So this is the condition, that a person must be aqil. وَيَبْقَى إِلَى الْفَجْرِ. So the timing begins from Zawal, 9 of Zulhijjah, all the way until Fajr of 10 of Zulhijjah. This is the obligation of wukuf in Arafah. So if a person is in Arafah, in any of this timing, even for a moment, the wukuf is valid. And this is, subhanAllah, and is something that is easy, that Allah make it for the ummah. So normally any people got no issue in what you call it, in performing any of the Arafah. It is something that is easy. وَسُنَنُهُ. The sunnah is al-jam'u bayna al-layli wal-nahar. What is the meaning al-jam'u bayna al-layli wal-nahar? When we are performing the wukuf in Arafah, it is a sunnah that we combine the day and night. Meaning, you must be in Arafah in the day and also at night. meaning you are there in the daytime and also in the nighttime. So this is the meaning of al-jam'u bayna al-layli wa nahar. So the way I need to do it, and it is usually what we do is we in Arafah before Zawal. So when comes into Zawal, we are already in Arafah. So most any people will do this. When comes into Zawal, everybody is there already. And then all the way until the sunset. So after the sunset, now you have done the wukuf part of the night. So now you get your share of the night time. So you have done the wukuf in the daytime, and you have also done the wukuf in the night time. And this is the sunnah, because the Prophet ﷺ, this is what he did. He stayed in Arafah all the way until sunset, and he did not pray the Maghrib in Arafah, but he made the intention of Jama' Ta'khir. He prays the Jama' Maghrib and Isha in Muzdalifah. So after the sunset, then we go to Muzdalifah and we perform our Isha in Muzdalifah together with Maghrib and Jama'an. This is the thing that Rata will mention. So he said, Al-jam'u bayna al-layli wa-nahar wa-tahlilu wa-takbiru wa-talbiyatu wa-tasbihu wa-tilawatu wa-salatu ala al-nabi. Basically everything whatever ibadah that we can do when we are in the land of Arafah, we busy ourselves with ibadah. So the author gave the examples of tahleel, reciting La ilaha illallah, takbir, Allahu Akbar, talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika lak labbaik, all these things continuously. Tasbih, making tasbih to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Recitation of the Quran, making salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, iksarul buka ma'aha. And to be in a state of remorse over the sins that we have done. To be always in a state of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in between we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So after dua, then we busy ourselves sometimes with tahleel or takbir or talbiyah, and it's not a sunnah to busy ourselves with the dunya, speaking about dunya and all these things, and sitting in gatherings anywhere. People speak about politics, people speak about dunya, all these things, and we should be patient. We should sacrifice these 5-6 hours for akhirah. Wal istiqbal, to face the qibla. Wat tahara, to be in a state of tahara. Was sitara, to be in a state anywhere we cover our aura. Wal buruz li shams, to be in a state that we are hit by the sun. Wa inda sakharati li rajuli, because all these things is ittiba' actually. If a person asks how come the author mentioned all these things, it is based on the actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Arafah, he stood on a hill and he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala standing under the sun. Nowadays many people are unable to do this because of the fear of dehydration and fainting. Dehydration or fainting. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has this strength that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him with. So he make dua in Arafah and he's standing in Jama'ah. Just imagine, for hours. And under the sun, under the heat of the sun. And this is at the place of the hill in Mash'ar al-Haram. Wahashiyatul mawqif lil mar'ati awla. So when it comes into the woman, it's not the sunnah to do that, but the woman is at the site of that place of standing, the hashiyah. Wal jam'u bayna al-asrayn lil musafiri wa ta'khir al-maghrib ila al-isha lil musafiri yajma'aha bi Muzdalifah. Then it is a sunnah to do jama' bayna al-asrayn, Zuhr and Asr. Zuhr and Asr we pray in Arafah. Taqdeeman lil musafir, because of safar. Wa ta'khir al-maghrib ila al-isha, then we pray the maghrib and the isha in Muzdalifah. And this is due to safar, because our scholars differ. Why did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam does a jama'? So the correct answer is that because he is a musafir. Because he is a musafir, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came from Medina. That is why he does the jama', wallahu a'lam. And then inshallah on the next lesson we enter into the chapter of shaving, and this part of the integrals of the Hajj and Umrah. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.